Being joined by Richard Harris of Port Shelter Investment Management to help us decode the global triggers. Good morning, Richard. Thanks very much for your time. What's your sense on this morning's third and final presidential debate? What's the sense out there?
Well, I think the street is probably going to be discounting a Hillary Clinton victory at this stage. It really only remains by how much. But if they do that, I think some of the policies at last are coming out. It's certainly the case that the Clinton side are coming out with, well, maybe regarded as quite left-wing policies. And these are keeping tax levels low on the poor, taxing higher income levels somewhat higher. They're talking about maybe clamping down on Wall Street more, keeping more regulation there. So there's definitely a lot of rhetoric coming out from the Clinton camp about children, young people, and support for those. Clearly, she's also in favor of Medicare. So they are coming out somewhat on the left. But my feeling is that that's not exactly how a Clinton presidency would turn out. I think she will actually, rather than being strong on domestic points, I think she will be really pretty strong in terms of foreign policy. I think America will continue to have a strong foreign policy footprint. And I think at home there probably will be some reform of the tax code. We're certainly overdue for maybe the rich paying a little bit in the way of more tax. The budget deficit will probably continue to go up. But I think all in all, it'll end up being a fairly moderate policy with a fairly moderate administration with a strong foreign policy.
Okay. Richard, while the market is leaning towards Hillary Clinton winning, there is always that outside chance that Trump could even in fact win. So if that does happen, do you think that there would be a huge disruption in global markets?
I think a Trump win probably would lead to disruption because, as I said, we're likely to see an overturning of a number of trade deals. We're probably going to see a lot of rhetoric, quite aggressive rhetoric towards, say, Europe, and certainly towards who might be regarded as the US's opponents, China and Russia. I would say that's not particularly helpful, then that's likely to spook the markets, so it certainly would provide a headwind or a handbrake to the global economy, certainly to the global equity markets moving forward.
Richard, we've seen some profit booking from FIIs in the equity and the debt markets in India recently. Do you think it is routine, or are we seeing some change in approach?
I don't think there's any fundamental change. My general feeling has been that if we do see a rally towards the end of the year, maybe a Santa rally going through towards the Christmas, New Year holiday period, then we're quite likely to see some of that money going into the emerging markets. The emerging markets have been hard hit. They're seen as being hard hit. Certainly if oil retains these sort of levels, then Brazil and Russia will see some sort of recovery. And of course, that is also going to move on to the other emerging markets, India, Southeast Asia as well. China is a bit of a question mark. We might see some people dipping their toe in the water there, but because the market has been quite volatile with domestic investors, that's probably the one that may have to see some questions. But I can certainly see some funds flow moving into the emerging markets once we have if we have a fairly settled end-of-year Santa-type rally.
So what is your preference list, Richard, for you in terms of the emerging markets, and in what order would it be?
Well, I've always felt that, markets that are emerging markets where the economy is doing okay, most economies aren't doing too badly, where they're doing okay, are likely to be areas which might be favored. So I think some of the Southeast Asian markets have been fine. I mean, even until recently, Thailand, although Thailand has a question mark, I think Philippines has some political risk. I think Indonesia looks interesting. I think India looks very interesting. I'm still in two minds about China because there are a lot of reforms that need to go through. But we could also have, maybe if we see a bit of a pickup in Brent crude to say $55, we may also have a pickup in Russia and Brazil. Brazil's done quite well recently. So I think there is some hope there. And it might be slightly more across the board in very much the same way as markets fell, even though you can't really look at emerging markets across the board because they're so very different.
Okay, Richard, we're going to leave it on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and speaking with us. Well, just a quick word on the markets. Maybe we should pull up the Yes